This is the awkward part, how you start a conversation.
It's the worst part of every
it's
conversation.
the worst part.
Why don't we start with a prayer? This is actually why our grandmothers started meetings with prayers.
Oh yeah, to cut the awkwardness.
Because it's to cut the awkwardness. Because now you can't just come together and be like, your son has a drug problem and your husband is cheating. If you start with a prayer, then it opens
But
it
it was
up.
also a township power move. Because everyone here will know whose house this is. Because you can't lead a prayer at...
You can't lead a prayer at somebody else's house.
No.
When you pray in a South African household, right? First of all, like I don't know if your grandmother did this. My grandmother used to give her address, and she used to give like where she's from and her name and everything.
No, my grandma never did that.
No, really, my grandmother would do that.
Yeah.
She'd be like, "Bawetu Samazulin, Kamalamungu Francis Noah," and then she'd be like, "Stalala,
Location.
626 Orlando
what
East."
a location.
Yeah, who you are, where you're from, whatever. And I remember I asked her once, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" And then she was like, "Why do I assume?"
He
She was
knows
like,
where I am.
"Yeah," she said, Trevor, I must just assume that God is always listening to me. She said, yeah, that's not fair. And if you think about it, most South African like prayer in general, I think is very like considerate of God. It's very much like we know that you're doing stuff and we know that like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think because of missionaries, we never, as black people, thought that God is with us. God was brought to us.
Huh.
So we always have to identify ourselves and also separate ourselves from the non-believers.
It's funny, now that you say the missionary thing,
Yeah.
I actually think a lot of that was real. Is that like, because I always think about this. I go like, imagine being a black person anywhere on the continent, right? These people come with religion, right? And then they tell you that the reason things are going bad in your life is because you don't have
Religion.
this God in particular. Because there was religion.
Okay.
There were different religions all over the continent, all over South America, all over these places. They would force the native people, that they would force them to buy goods from them that nobody else wanted to buy at predetermined prices. They would say they would do the work of like donkeys and mules and all of that stuff. But the main thing was they also came in with religion. So everywhere in the world, I can see this vibe where people have come in with religion saying to you, hey, all these bad things that are happening to you are because you don't worship God. And then it must have been weird because the natives are like, you are the bad thing that's happening to us. They're like, yes, exactly.
But
if you had prayed,
and you have penicillin,
this wouldn't be happening to you.
But I thought you didn't need penicillin because you can pray. Hey.
And this is
go put on clothes. It's not cancer time yet.
Trevor's mind moved to its own rhythm. Some saw disorder, yet it was a gift that once left him shoeless on the side of the road on his way home.
My record with my mom, the story that she keeps bringing up is one day I came home from school. I had no backpack and I had no shoes.
Come on.
And then my mom said to me, and my cousin always tells a story as well, because he says that day I got one of the all-time beatings.
All-time.
And he says he remembers like watching me going, but this could have been avoided. He was also a child, but he was like, he says he watched me and he thought to himself, but he could have avoided this. And what had happened was I came home and apparently my mom was like, where's all your stuff? And I said to her, the bag got heavy.
Put it down.
So I put it down. I literally left it on the side of the road.
Very
I put it down. To me, logical.
Yeah.
And then she said, and what happened to the shoes? And I said, the shoes were new and I didn't want to finish them. So I left them somewhere close to school so that I don't have to wear them out on the way home. Because you know, like your shoes would get worn out on the sides, right? Like we couldn't afford new shoes the same way other kids could. So I noticed kids always had like a flat heel on their shoe.
Look at how observant you are, though.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then my shoes had the slant that looked terrible. So I was like, okay, if I can preserve my shoes, then I won't get laughed at as much. So I'll leave the shoes near school and then walk home barefoot. And we went back and everything was where it was, which means my plan worked technically.
Technically.
Yeah, but she couldn't understand. And my brain, I remember thinking this made sense. And
To me.
to me, it makes complete sense.
Yes.
As children, Trevor and his friends turned the streets into playgrounds, claiming space where none was given. He remembers how community can be built from nothing but bricks and courage.
I think the truth is that we think we don't have the third spaces, but it's just because we've made every space a private space. Like I was just thinking this walking around like parts of Brooklyn the other day. I've noticed a dip in how many block parties there are.
Yeah.
Just that was a simple event
Yeah.
where you closed the streets.
Yeah.
You agreed, neighbor at the end, neighbor at the end. We all agree on Saturdays we are going to close our block, and everyone's going to just open their door and like walk out, and the kids can kick a ball and can
That
hit
is
a
so
ball.
great for
and I've seen a
everyone.
few parts of New York where they do it now. Like this is like in Manhattan, by the way, like Chelsea, somewhere there.
Okay.
I remember driving one day and I was irritated because I was in the car, I was trying to get to an airport, and the road was closed. But I loved the fact that like I saw like someone hitting a baseball, and then people running. The whole street was just closed, and I was like, oh. We've been tricked into thinking the thing that's right outside our door is not a third space.
No, but that's not a third space.
Why
that's
is it
a
not?
home. Third spaces are like actual. I'm talking about parks,
Yes,
libraries.
yes. No.
They have decimated them.
I'm
That's
with
right.
you.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that when I grew up, they didn't exist.
Okay.
Black kids couldn't go to a library.
Oh yeah, you grew up.
There was no park.
Yeah.
There was no
Okay.
during apartheid. None of this exists.
Yeah, that's
but I
true.
have the full childhood that you're talking about.
Okay. Right.
Because the third space
I
was
get
the
it.
street.
The street. That's
Okay,
right.
I get what you
If
mean.
your grandmother
But
told
you travel around the world. Sometimes you don't see girls, but you always see boys playing in the street.
Yes,
Yeah.
the third space is the street.
Yeah, that's right.
So you go, you tell the kids,
we
go
need
out.
to get rid of these SUVs. I would let my son play in the street if Americans didn't have these huge
Exactly.
ass cars.
You know, and
I'm
you
like, if
see-
he runs in front of the car.
Yes, but that's what I mean by
Yeah.
close the streets.
Yeah.
So I go, I would love to live in a society where we go. Like, we used to do this on, I wish I could like take you to the picture in my brain. We as the kids ran the streets as if we were adults. So we would close the street with
You
bricks.
take the responsibility.
Yeah, we would take bricks and we
Yeah.
would put them at the beginning of each road and close each road.
Yeah.
And then when a car would need to turn into the street, because this is like a road,
Right.
you know, it's not a public, I'm not talking about like main roads. So if you're
Yeah.
listening
Right,
to
you had
this,
no permission
I'm
to
not
do
talking about
this.
the highway.
This was just an informal thing you
Yes,
did.
I'm not talking about a highway. I'm not talking about a main road. I'm talking about like
In your neighborhood.
Yeah,
or
your
on the
neighborhood.
side,
It was a township, but it was still a neighborhood. We'd put bricks there. A car would need to turn. There would be kids stationed at every corner, and you'd shout, "Koloi!" You know, car.
Okay.
And then you'd run there together. You'd move the
the
bricks.
bricks, let 'em
Everyone would
through.
clear the road.
Yeah.
The car would
Yeah.
drive either through where it needs to go to, or it would like stop at the house that it's stopping at. And then we'd put the bricks back on the road, and then we'd continue playing. And because I agree with you, I'm not
Yeah.
saying like go play in the street, but I'm saying sometimes we look at problems in life, and they seem insurmountable because we're looking at them the wrong way. Okay, no phones and no this and no, and where now are we going to build third space? How much is a third space? Where do you get it? How do we
Yeah.
build a park?
Yeah.
Do we get permits? Guys, everyone, if you are lucky enough to have a house, if you're lucky enough to be renting a space, if you literally have the third space right outside your
Yeah,
door.
that's
You
right.
just have to claim it back.
Yeah. That's
You
right.
literally just have to claim it back collectively.
In his home, drugs and drink were shadows never touched. But one day, Trevor's mother offered him a cigarette and a sip, teaching him that even temptation could be faced with honesty.
I think about growing up and my perception of drugs. So I didn't touch weed my whole. So I'll even take it before even like drugs. My mom doesn't drink. My mom doesn't smoke. My dad doesn't drink. My dad doesn't smoke. All right. So I grew up in a home where that wasn't a thing. My grandmother, etc. And my mom said to me when I was 12, 13, maybe even younger, she came to my room and she had cigarettes and she had beer. And she said to me, "Do you want?" And I was like, "Oh, this is a trap. Obviously, this is a trap." And I was almost disappointed, and I was like, "Come on, lady, I'm not gonna fall for a trap like that. You're gonna come into my room and offer me cigarettes." And she was like, "Do you want to try them?" And I was like, "No, because these are bad things, and we should never." And then she said to me, "Listen, honey, you're gonna encounter alcohol, you're gonna encounter cigarettes and things. So if you're gonna use it, I would rather know that you use it, and then you use it at home, and then I don't worry that now you're out in the world using it." Hiding it from me and then getting into situations where you can't share that you're using
Harm
it.
reduction.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Which is wild. I mean,
Yes,
my mom
please.
is like super religious and super
Yeah.
strict and super
Very progressive.
Yeah. And so then she didn't even know how to like light a cigarette. So we had to go to an uncle of mine. And then he was like, "Trevor, what's up?" And she said he wants to try cigarettes. And the guy was like, "Okay, you want to smoke?" And he gave us the cigarettes. And I puffed with him. And I was like, "This is trash. This is so." I was like, "How is the taste in your mouth? you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It tastes like someone's like eating everything disgusting and then farting it into your oral cavity. And then the alcohol beer just tastes like old water that has, dribbled down a sewer into...
I'm a bad Brit. I don't like it.
So I didn't like any of that. And then drugs was almost in the same category for me.
Because of that initial experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, drugs, the way I grew up was, you are a loser.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to end your life. That's how I knew drugs.
So that hasn't changed now? That was just when you grew up?
That's how I knew drugs. That's all I was told. These are the things that will happen when you take drugs. So I didn't touch weed. I smoked weed for the first time when I was 21.
Okay.
That's how anti-drug. I used to judge people, and I would look at them and I would say to them, it is a pity that you've chosen to do this with your life. I used to say that to my cousin.
In South Africa, thinness was not beauty. Not at all. It was struggle. To gain weight was to be blessed. Trevor recalls how the meaning of a body can change, depending on where the story is told.
I think that one of the things that our whole fascination with Ozempic is based on is, and it's interesting, Christiane, I wonder if you have thoughts with little kids, right? Part of beauty is thinness, as it's taught to you from a really early age, like fatness, queerness, darkness, all of these things are like coded as signs of deviance. I feel like you learn as a really young child in Disney movies, in anything, like beauty is really coded as morality, and there's this Protestant work ethic thing, right? It's something that you should achieve through hard and punitive work and discipline, right?
Yeah.
And when people use Ozempic, it's like, you cheated. You skipped the hard work part,
Yeah.
And so you got the thing we demanded of you, but now we find this a vaguely immoral thinness.
Like you worked hard to achieve the right thing. Okay, I hear what you're saying. It's funny because I don't know how it was for you growing up, but so I've had an interesting journey with weight and how I perceive it and fatness, etc. Because I grew up in South Africa. Genuinely, growing up, this is such a weird thing to try and explain to people. In South Africa, you did not get made as much fun of if you were fat. Like a fat person, you just be like, I don't even remember if we had that many names, but I remember all the ones for skinny people was Stix Manzanza. It was that was my favorite ones. Stix Manzanza, Skinny Manili. It was like there were all these names where it was just like you're a twig, you're thin, and it was a sign there of a lack of having.
Yeah.
If you got married and you didn't gain weight, people would say that your marriage is not going well. Literally, they'd be like, is your wife not treating you well? Ay, man, no, man, look at you. If I would come home from the States, and like many times I'd come back from America and I gain weight. And so whenever I go home, people will be like, you're looking good, man. You're looking good. America's treating you well. You're looking, Trevor, no, man, you're looking good. Look at your cheeks. You're looking good. And then, and so where I grew up, fatness was considered like sort of a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then being skinny was like, your life is not going well and you're not making the right choices.
For sure.
So it's interesting how it flips, and I'm sure it's time as well.
As a child, Trevor learned that even authority could be questioned. Around the dinner table, disagreement birthed new ways of seeing. He explores how questioning can spark creativity.
There's some classic research looking at families, looking at what does it take to raise a creative child. And it turns out that creative children come from families, more often than not, that had regular arguments and disagreements.
Really?
Yeah. So if you want to raise a creative kid, you can at least increase the probability. I'm not sure if it's causal, but by arguing with your spouse a little bit more.
What do you think that is? I have an idea, but I'd love to know what you think that is.
Well, I want to hear your hunch before I tell you what I think, because I've been thinking about this for a long time.
So here's what I think it is. I think the reason children who grow up in houses that are a little more argumentative might be a little more creative is because they're existing in an environment where there isn't one way to think. And so what happens is they're both stumbling on what I like to call third thoughts, right? I had this idea when I was working on The Daily Show with my team. And I'd say, I think everyone has a thought, right? And then you can have a second thought even by yourself. But I think there's this elusive third thought that can only come from two different thoughts clashing together and forming a third thought that isn't from one specific place.
Yep.
And so I think if you are watching people who don't agree as a child, people who you generally love or you care for, etc., you are listening to a person and you are agreeing with them maybe, or just seeing their point of view. You're looking at another person, agreeing with them and seeing their point of view. And then maybe you are holding both, including a third, which might be yours, which is another opinion of it. And that might force your brain to think of more things than just the things that exist, which I think is what creativity fundamentally is.
I love this. Okay, so your theory is cognitive complexity comes from seeing people argue.
Okay.
That you don't
I need
default
to remember all the... You make like some of my ideas sound way smarter and fancier than they are, which I like. Cognitive complexity. Write that down. All right.
I just give you terms for things you already know.
Okay, cool.
I also think you learn to be a nonconformist through that same process.
Oh, interesting.
That instead of just defaulting or deferring to whatever an authority figure tells you, you realize, well, there are two different authorities in the room and they don't agree. And I think that can both lead to cognitive complexity, but it can also lead to more courage when it comes to challenging the status quo. Because there's not a right answer coming from above.
There is not one coming from above.
Yep.
You know, it's funny you say this. My mom is very religious, extremely, extremely religious, but I also think she is one of the most progressive thinkers I've ever come across in my lifetime. And one thing I always noticed as a child was how sometimes she would disagree with the sermon that the pastor gave when we'd leave church. And I'd be like, and I'm just a kid. I'm just sitting in the passenger seat listening. And she goes, I didn't agree with that. I hear where the pastor was coming from, but I think that story of Joseph is not about, and then she'd go into her thing and then I'd be like, but he's the pastor. And she's like, yeah, he's a guy who reads the Bible.
He's not God.
Yeah, but he's not God. He's like, we also have the Bible. And it was an interesting way for me to view even religion, is going like, don't assume that the person who stands on the pulpit has like
All
a
the
monopoly
answers.
on knowledge.
Yeah.
You too have the book that you can read. And so now that makes me wonder now, I'm like, was that part of me, okay, I like this.
I like it too. I mean, you can see both of those effects playing out.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
You're not just going to assume that the pastor's answer is gospel.
Right.
And then you're also not going to be afraid to question what somebody in power says.
Trevor was part of the first generation to sit in classrooms across color lines. A fragile experiment, very fragile, if I'm to be honest with you, shaped by apartheid's shadow. He recalls what it meant to grow up in that moment of change.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, Dale, and we were talking about how at our school, they had a program where, because we were the first generation that was like, literally, you and I were the first generation. How old are you, Dan?
31.
31, yeah. So we were the first generation of kids that went to school with kids of a different race.
Yeah.
Literally, I sometimes think about how crazy that was when I go like, literally, the first year in my school, that there were black kids, Indian kids, colored kids, with white kids. That was the first time that had ever happened.
You guys were round one. You were the first child.
We were literally...
All an experiment.
Yo, our
could have gone
teachers...
so wrong.
Our teachers had never seen a black child in front of them in a classroom before.
Our parents had to wear their Sunday best for the first drop-off.
Drop-off? Our parents didn't even know what a drop-off was.
I mean, drop-off life.
No, but just think about that as a concept. I remember being shocked that when I went to school... Kids were dropped off by their parents in a vehicle that they owned. Like one child got out of one car. Meanwhile, when the black kids got there, it looked like a circus trick where like one car and they'd open a door and then like...
So many.
You're 15. And that's how we just traveled around. The back of every bakkie, the back of every van was all of us. You know what I mean? But that exposure, like our school had this program where they went, we want every kid to go and stay at another kid's house who they're friends with. They weren't even like, they don't like a stranger.
Yeah,
but they said, hey, you guys are friends.
But it was a deliberate program.
Yo,
Yeah.
it was amazing to see, talking about like exposure therapy. It was amazing to see how the black kids weren't particularly surprised by what they experienced because many of them had moms who were working for white people. So they had seen a glimpse of a white
That
life.
is sense of it, yeah, for sure.
Let me tell you something. Every single white kid who went to go and live with a black family for a weekend, every single one of them went home and said the same thing. They said, Mom and Dad, do you know how black people live? And not in like a righteous way, just as like a child.
Like a curious way.
Like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. They went, yo, do you know how they live? Do you know how they come to school every day? Do you know that they have to take 3 buses to get
With
here?
other people, with strangers.
Do you know that they don't have hot water in the morning at their house? You have to make a fire and then heat it up. And then they
Or the
pull
coal
that
stove.
out, and then you have to do it again for each person, and they have to. You know, they don't have their own bathrooms. You know that their toilets outside. I go to school with this kid. I see myself as his direct like competition in that way.
Yeah.
But I'm going, how is he doing math when he woke up like that?
In the spinning of a simple roundabout, young Trevor found joy in bringing people together. He uncovers how that childhood game revealed the purpose guiding his life. Oh yeah.
Okay. Tell me an early, specific happy childhood memory, something I can relive with you.
An early,
Specific.
specific
Happy childhood memory.
childhood memory.
Yeah.
Damn, this is an interesting one. Let me think, because there's many. How old? Give me an age and I'll tell you.
I don't care.
No, but when does childhood end?
42.
Okay. No, I'm being serious though.
I want when you're a child, like under in school, like an early childhood memory.
One of my happiest childhood memories is me.
The only one who's ever asked me, "What do you mean by childhood?"
Yes, because I think your memories at different ages are very
Definitely an early specific childhood memory.
Yeah. So okay, when I think of young, one of my favorite memories was playing on the roundabout at a park near my house.
This is something a specific time, not just a thing you did.
No.
regularly.
This is was a
time.
specific one.
Okay, yeah, go on.
And we were all seeing how we were all teaming up. I got a bunch of people together to see how fast we could make this thing spin. But like it was a monumental effort. Do you know what I mean? Because everyone had to be at the right place, swinging the thing at the right time to get it. Our goal was to make it fly. That was the dream. We thought if we spin it hard enough, it's going to take off. And this was, but that was one of my. When I think back, I go like, wow, what a day! What a day!
And of all the amazing things you had happen in this magical childhood that you've talked about, what specifically was it about this one thing that stands out so much that you want to talk about it now?
It's collaboration. I chose the people I was doing it with. We didn't pick the random kids who we knew had no coordination because the thing's going to smack you in the hands, right? So we got the strongest, fastest, smartest, most affable. We put the people together and we were like, this works. So it wasn't like if you were the small kid, then your job might have been to be more on the inside. If you were the big kid, your job was to push. But we put people together and it matched in many ways, right? And the most important thing, funny enough, Simon Sinek, the most important thing was that we were having fun. And I mean this genuinely. We were having, we had a purpose, but man, we were having fun.
So so now what I'm doing is I'm looking for the connection between those things and saying, okay, that's the common factor, right? Which is where you find great joy is when you can bring the right people together to do something that matters and have a ton of fun doing it.
Yes.
Okay? And that's sort of your purpose in life, which is to bring people together to do something bigger than themselves and have a good time doing it.
Right.
And if everything you do in your life, you can is that
that
merry-go-round, that roundabout.
merry-go-round. We also call it merry-go-round.
Yeah. And everything in your life was like that roundabout. You that is what a game on is.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity for you is to remind yourself of that, right? So whether you get a Lego merry-go-round or a picture of a merry-go-round or just that merry-go-round.
Oh, I like this. I like sentimental things.
Right?
This
The
is
merry-go-round it's your talisman. It's the thing that reminds you of why you get out of bed today. All you want to do in life is work tirelessly to create the merry-go-round, right? And the thing is because you have vision. We're going to make this thing fly.
Yeah.
Okay? So people go, huh? And you go, you, and you.
Yeah.
Okay? And now they're all coming in and you're having a blast. And whether it succeeds or fails, it didn't fly.
It did not fly.
It did not fly.
It did not.
It did not fly. So it actually failed, if we're really honest with ourselves. But it didn't matter because it was the joy of the together and the fun, even with the vision, that made it worth it. You never said at any point, and I freaking nailed it.
No, that's not the point.
Right? The point wasn't the result.
No.
The point was the people
The
coming
outcome is a
together.
bonus. I always say this.
The outcome is a bonus.
Happy Mark Cuban Day, everybody.
Hey.
Woo, yeah, Mark
Yeah.
Cuban. Yeah, billionaire. Woo. Oh, man. How was your week, Josh? What did you get up to?
I'm doing great, man. I'm in Montana. I did blacksmithing for the first time yesterday. I'm a new person.
What do you mean you did blacksmithing for the first time? What does that even mean? That's a strange way to say you did somebody's job and then
Yeah.
I did accounting for the first time yesterday and it was a lot of fun. It was really good.
Yeah,
I think
the
I'm
way
going to be an
that
accountant now.
yes, the way that I mean it is not I did accounting. It's that I counted yesterday.
Yeah.
I dipped my toes in.
How was it?
It was great. It's like it was admittedly very difficult because the muscles that it requires are not ones I've ever worked on. Because you would think if you have biceps and you have good shoulders and everything that you're gonna hit the mallet just right and everything's gonna flatten out for you.
Yeah.
But
you need like a beard, don't you?
you need a beard and you need wrist
Yeah,
strength.
I feel like wrist strength?
What?
Yeah. So there are muscles in the forearm that we haven't met. And so then me hitting the mallet and the metal was doing a lot of bouncing back.
Did you make something, by the way?
Yes,
Or did you
yes.
they just made you hit something like a little child? Which one was it?
No, I made something. I made a
What did you make?
hook for my backpack to put on the wall.
A hook
Yeah.
for my backpack to put on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
What life are you living?
Well, there was no time for me to make something substantial. So I really had to just learn all the basics. Like I had to learn the curve so that nothing catches on the hook. I had to learn how to flatten out a piece so we can screw it in. And then the functional, oh Lord. 1 second, sorry.
What just happened?
Are you okay?
Oh,
What's
yes,
going
yes.
on?
His wrist.
No.
injured.
I'm fine.
His wrist is cramping. What's going on, Josh?
My computer was about to die, so I had to grab the charger.
Oh, okay.
Just
Okay.
ill prepared,
All
you
right.
know. Just
You're just
That
so
sounded-
in the blacksmith mode. You're not even thinking about the technology anymore.
No,
You're just
no.
you're
Yeah,
a
that was
changed man.
powerful. That was you had the same reaction I'm assuming that Boeing pilot had on the flight right now. That's what your face looked like right now. You were having a calm, easy conversation with us, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh God, oh God,
oh no.
oh God."
Let me see. Okay.
Oh man.
Oh, that plug doesn't work. No.
This is giving like some good drama to the episode. It's like
It really is.
How
It really
long do
is.
we
The
have
tension.
Josh for? We don't know. 4% left.
We don't know. Will he get it? Will he not get it?
God. Okay.
Did
I
you get
got
it, Josh?
Yeah, I got it. Oh man, that was
Oh man, that was close.
because it tells you too late. Because they'll tell you that the battery low on the computer, and then it'll just say bye.
It's an Irish goodbye. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It texts you when it's already in the car on the way home. Hey, I had to leave. The battery was low. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. Oh man, have you been following the story with the Boeing planes? By the way,
Yes. I've been
this is.
enthralled. I've done jokes about it.
What's your favorite joke you've told about it?
We really been trashing Spirit for a while now. As Spirit at least get the whole plane there, right? When you pay Spirit is then like, okay, we gonna get you and the plane there, and then you are on this Alaska air flight. Pieces of the plane start coming off, and you're like, well, I did pay $68. Like it just is one of those things where I think as Americans, we are too bloodied from our customer service experiences that we don't even think we deserve full plane.
That's funny. By the way, I was thinking if I was the passenger sitting next to the passenger that the door opened on, because it was a really beautiful story. I don't know if you saw any of the videos of the passengers. One of them made a video and she was talking about how she was sitting in the window. Well, it's a window that was a door that then turned into like an exit,
Mhm.
and she was sitting there. The thing blew off, and then the passengers around her like held her, like they grabbed her arms and they pulled her inwards. I was like, that is a test. Every time we think that humanity is terrible, we receive information to the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I won't lie to you. I don't know what I would do in that situation, but what I think I would do is pull my hands away from the person who is at the window I do not think I would reach towards them. Yeah, if a door blows open and there's a stranger next to me reaching towards me, I would be like, no, my friend, no, you run your own right now. This is your journey. You know
what you just said reminds me of this meme where someone's drowning and their hand is out looking for help, and the person just gives them a high five. It's like, bye.
Yeah. That's. I'm just. Maybe in that scenario, I would be overcome by, I don't know, an instinct greater than myself to save the person, maybe. But thinking of me right now as Trevor, I think I would recoil. My body would jump away from the person at the window, and then I would, and then as they reach for me, I would probably like slap their hand away, like while they're trying. I'd be like, no. You know what's been fascinating to me about this Boeing story is how many people don't seem to understand the direct straight line between companies cutting costs at all costs and then consumers being in a position where they're receiving an inferior product. Boeing's just trying to cut costs. It's crazy that they said that door was held by 4 bolts that weren't screwed in properly.
I'm pretty sure that they've had so many problems with that Boeing that they've now, when they do the in-flight announcement, that first one, they stop saying what plane it was. Because remember when you would be on Delta and they'd be like, we're so thankful for you to join us on our trip on this Airbus
on this
444.
Boeing 7, exactly.
They've stopped doing that now. Now they're just like, welcome.
Hope you make it.
Welcome to your last day on Earth.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on your trip to wherever. But I don't think they include that anymore because I stopped hearing it.
I think something good did come out of this. Just saying.
The door came out of this. What was something good?
The door definitely came out. But there's a big divide in this country. And I feel like it was a win for one side. And that is my people, the aisle seat people who are always being told
you're an aisle seat person.
And now I have an extra reason to be an aisle seat person. I can get up to the bathroom whenever I want. I have the power to let other people pee or not. And now I'm not going to get sucked out of a plane. So I win. So thanks, Alaska. No one died, so I'm good with it.
To what Emmanuel is saying, there was one time someone was very mean to me on a flight before we took off, and I was in the aisle. And they were in the middle, and I just pretended to be asleep so they couldn't get up to pee.
Incredible power play.
That UTI brought to you by Josh Johnson.
Yeah, I really leaned, because I was already napping on the tray table, and I felt them poke me. And then I was like, you know what?
Tray table nap.
I'm like, I'm not getting up. I'm not getting
amazing,
up. I'm not
Josh.
moving.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Mark Cuban? Anything you're really interested to hear from him?
Yes, you read my mind. In a world where there is so much lack and so much of a gap between the sort of have and have not, how does someone like Mark Cuban maintain their status as a beloved billionaire? Because we're in a world now where
that's an interesting question.
He seems to me to be just as industrious as Elon or Bezos, but in different things. And it doesn't seem like his reach has offended the general public in the way that Elon and Bezos have. How has he managed to be so many people's bosses and have so much power, influence, and structure around himself and not drawn the ire of the general public?
That's a great question, Josh.
Sweet.
I thought you were going to ask something random.
Oh no, I've learned my lesson.
Your time blacksmithing has changed you. Yeah, Barry?
Well, yeah, I mean, my question is he willing to invest in Josh's backpack hooks? Because I think it could be, I don't know, it could be really big. So
see, I feel like what happened here is Josh secretly sent you his question and you sent him yours, and you've all tricked me here into not realizing where the questions have come from. I know a Josh Johnson question when I smell it. I will not be asking him if he'll invest in your backpack hooks. Emmanuel, I'm going to get one from you, and then we're going to jump into the interview.
I really want to hear about, before he was super successful in business, he tried to be an actor, and he was in 3 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger.
Walker, Texas Ranger. Yep.
I want to hear about that. I'm just very curious, because now we think of him as $6.2 billion. He's also 6'2". Conspiracy, Illuminati. That's a question. I'll stop there. I think the questions are getting worse.
We'll leave the questions to you, Trevor.
I actually think they were getting much better. Yes. Is it a coincidence that your height is the same as your money, Mark Cuban? I think that's a great question.
It's a conspiracy.
All right, let's jump into it, y'all. Mark Cuban coming up. Mark Cuban, the one and only. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you. You know, you are, when people think of Mark Cuban, they go, this is a human being who seems to know everything, do everything, get involved in everything, and enjoy everything that he's doing. How do you see yourself? Because some people say Mark Cuban, immediately they go billionaire. Others go, Dallas Mavericks owner. Other people go businessman. What's the first thing you think of when you think of Mark Cuban?
Just a regular guy, that's been really fortunate.
Regular?
Yeah, for real. Just a kid from Pittsburgh that just, has the same friends, gets beat up by my 3 teenagers, enjoys sports. I loves business and technology. I don't know. I guess I don't think about myself that often,
Yeah. Same friends. Are these the same friends that you were selling, trash bags with when you were a kid? Or are these the same friends you opened the bar with? The bar with?
All the above, yeah. So in Pittsburgh, I still got Stu, the big man, Bofi, Seymour, all the nicknames you have, and we do a Zoom call every 2 weeks. But still, those are my buddies.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. The young Mark Cuban. I'm oftentimes most intrigued by the origin story of a very successful person, and yours intrigues me because you hear the story of this kid who grows up in in this area that doesn't seem particularly special. Right? It seems like just like every town in America, everyone's going into work, doing their thing, living their life, and you had in you this insatiable attitude and idea of, I guess, making money. Or what would you say your drive is? Is it making money or finding opportunity?
Well, initially it was just making money because, my dad and my mom, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did odd jobs. And, as long as I can remember, it was like, okay, if you want something, you're going to have to go earn it and you're going to have to earn the money to do it. And that's just driven me. From selling baseball cards when I was 9 to 10 years old to selling garbage bags door to door, selling magazines door to door. It always involves selling. And, I honestly, if you can sell something door to door, your confidence goes through the roof, and you just learn how to deal with things, and you learn how to build your, to interact with people and to be nice. And so I think those things really drove me.
I used to sell things when I was a kid. I used to at a pirated CD business.
Beautiful.
Allegedly. That's what my lawyers say. I should always say allegedly. So I used to sell music, like when CD writing was still a very new concept. And I know you were also like, you coded and you were in tech and everything. But I loved this idea that you could create from nothing. You had this new technology that could connect people in ways, and the computer was this novel idea. I sold things. I connected with people. A lot of your story I can relate to, except for the part where you become a billionaire. I need to understand. I need to understand what steps I missed. What mistakes did I make?
That's the luck part. Anybody who's a billionaire who thinks they could just do it all over again is lying their ass off.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Because, if the internet stock market hadn't just taken off when we were starting AudioNet, you wouldn't even know who I was. That's just the way it works. And, I think, could I be a millionaire multiple times over? Yeah, because I could hustle, I could sell, I was smart. But the whole billionaire side of it, the hundreds of millions of dollars, that's just insane. And that was luck.
Man, I like this. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. It's like, you can make money, you can do well, but being a billionaire is just luck, right time, right place, everything. So if I started you again with all your knowledge today, you don't think you could be a billionaire?
No, unless I got lucky again, right? Could I find
Right.
opportunities to get me there? There's only a few of those types of opportunities. You can start, a hedge fund and hopefully do well, and then you raise a lot of money. You could take a company public. You can start a private company and be bought out. Those really are the primary ways to get to that level of wealth. And so could I try any or all of those
Right.
things? Yeah. Like if I had to have if you put me in the witness protection program and nobody knew who I
Right.
was and I had to just start purely from scratch, but I still knew what I know now, I could do well. But I would have to search out some unique opportunity, because to be a billionaire, there's got to be something that's very leverageable, right? Something that just explodes financially. But there's a whole lot of people who are really, really smart who do each of those things or one of them really well, and we don't know who they are.
What do you think you need to possess to spot opportunity? And this is outside the realm of being a billionaire. But what do you think it was inside you? Did you get it from your parents? Did you get it from your community? What was it that helped Mark realize that there were gaps in every market? Because you were selling stuff when you were a kid.
Yeah.
How do you see those gaps?
I mean, I was just the most curious person you could ever imagine. I mean, I just loved to learn. I was that kid that was just reading everything I could get my hands on about business. And
Yeah.
if you read enough, you're going to learn something to your advantage.
Whoa, wait. Go back.
Sure.
Go back. You said you were reading about business as a kid?
Oh, yeah. Like I was 10, 11, 12, you name it. I was
You
reading.
see, this is the difference.
Yeah, business books all the time. There was this kid, Barry Minkow, and he started this this carpet cleaning company, ZZZ Best Carpet Cleaning, right? And he took a company
Okay.
public when he was 21 years old. And there was a book written about him. But the thing about it was completely a fraud. And so he made all these tens of millions, if not $100 million as a 21-year-old kid running this company, just fooling everybody and anybody he talked to. And I read that book as a kid and I was thinking, if this kid can fool all these adults, put aside the fraud, that just means there's lots of opportunity there to do something and build a business. And how old you are doesn't mean anything, right? If you can figure it out. And so I just always just took that and said, I just keep on learning from what other people do and learn from their mistakes and learn what they do right.
Yeah.
Get a job, learn from you. I would tell myself, you pay to go to college, but then after you get a job, you get paid to learn. And that's the way I looked at the jobs that I got, the way I looked at the jobs I got fired from. Everything was a learning experience, and sooner or later it added up to something of value.
One of the biggest things I've noticed in your story that's similar to a lot of people who are really successful is you never fit in, though. You never seem to fit into like a strict corporate structure.
No, that's for sure.
Like I know one of your jobs you got fired from, and you vowed, you were like, I'm never going back into corporate America again. Like, what do you think it is about corporate America that doesn't work for you and other people who are like entrepreneurs or really business minded?
I think structure and limits. So one of my first jobs out of college, I went to work at Mellon Bank in Pittsburgh. And again,
Okay.
I'm reading everything I could. And there was this old magazine called Entrepreneur Magazine. And there was an article about how companies can save money on their Social Security taxes. So what do? I buy a copy, I earmark it, I write a little note on it, and I send it to the CEO of this huge Mellon Bank. I mean, with thousands and thousands of employees. And I get a note back saying, thank you. It's not quite a fit, but my boss was like, what the hell are you doing? And then I started the rookie club, right? Where I would get all the other people who had just started with me and I would go find a senior level executive and we'd take them out and get them drunk or her drunk and just sit there and chit chat. And my boss, John Whitman,
That is hilarious.
I'll never forget. He calls me into his office. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? And literally, no lie, like I tear up and I start to cry and I tell, oh, sorry, my contacts are bothering me because he's just yelling at me nonstop and I'm 22 years old. And like, I'm just trying to do the best I can to help my company make more money. And it's just, that's the delta, right? That's the difference because I didn't look at it as just a job that I just wanted and I was going to work 9 to 5 and just see where I could go. To me, it was an opportunity, and my only mission was to help my company make more money. And my peers and my bosses didn't quite see it that way.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when you say it like that. It brings me to an idea that I often speak about with my friends, which is I don't think anybody is not successful, or I don't think anybody's not good at doing something. I just think that most of us aren't afforded the opportunity to do the thing that we are good at for money. And it seems like you were lucky enough to be in that position, right?
You're 100% right. And for a lot of people, they can't even find what that one thing is. I really, truly believe that we're all God-given gifted at something. The hard part is finding it and having the confidence to try it.
And hoping that there's money that comes from it. Because I feel like some people have a talent.
Yeah, and maybe money's not the thing that drives you either. I mean, we all have our own version of success. When I was busted and with 5 roommates, I was still having fun. It wasn't my ultimate goal, but I mean, I was enjoying my life. So I think, the hard part is just finding it. It's what I tell my kids, you don't have to, when you're 14, 17, 20 years old, you don't have to know what you're going to be when you grow up. You just have to be willing to be curious, excited to learn, love to learn. And then, someday you'll find something that you really enjoy doing, hopefully.
Do you think you're raising normal, well-adjusted kids?
That's the hope. That's the plan. You get unsolicited comments from friends, or not even friends, but just people your kids come in contact with. And, they say they're good kids, and they are good kids, but, they do the math. They read the stories, and so they know what's coming their way. And so, as much as we try to keep them grounded, we're not a household that has servants and somebody doing everything for you all the time. It's just, we try to just live as normally as we can, having a plane.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? There's still those little things that jump out at you. It's funny. One of the funniest stories I remember was I was speaking to Jerry Seinfeld about how you raise normal kids when you're living an extraordinary life, and he said to me, and I mean, Jerry's one of the funniest people ever. And he says to me, he goes, what he does is he always reminds his kids that he's rich. They're not rich.
I've done the same thing many, many times. Just like we were talking about tattoos. And I said, tattoo on you? No, you and will. Just stuff like that for sure.
This is something that's always fascinating me. What's your day? What's your routine like? I'm constantly bombarded with these. They always pop up on social media. And it's like, live like a billionaire, wake up at 4 a.m., be up before the sun, go to sleep before the sun goes down, drink coffee that has butter in it. What's your routine, Mark?
I get up probably 6:37, just depending on the day.
Oh, I like this. I like this already.
Lay in bed, look at my emails.
Okay.
Because I try to do everything by email. And so then I'm in bed for like an hour, chilling, doing my emails, responding to anything that's urgent, and then get up, get something to eat, go work out, and then come back and rinse and repeat. Because I literally try to do as few meetings and calls as possible and try to gear everything towards email. And so, I mean, I'm on my phone or my PC all day, every day. And that's it. That's it.
Man, I like, this is the first normal response I've gotten from a really successful person, where it's just like, that sounds like an achievable way to live your life, I
mean, the whole value of being in this position is just being able to control your time. That's it.
That's what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. But some people make it seem like the more successful you become, the less you are in control of your life, which then makes it seem like there's no incentive to get there.
Right. I mean, look, when I was in college, I bought this book, How to Retire by the Age of 35. And the whole premise of the book was live like a student, right? You don't have to have anything fancy. You just save up your money and, just barely live off of what you need to live off of. And I was cool with that, right? Because that's the one thing you can't get back that just flies by. It's the one asset you can't control and it's just time. And to me, just being able to control my own time so I can go to my kids' basketball games. I can just try to get them to engage with me and then have them turn their back on me more times a day, right? It's just all those things in life that you just want to hold on to. Those are the things that I really value.
We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. Well, Mark, one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you on the podcast is because I honestly believe there are few people out there who have more interesting opinions, and not just opinions, but opinions that are based in experience or in some way, shape, or form attached to what's actually happening in the world than Mark Cuban. whether it's sports, we can talk about that. Whether it's politics, we can talk about that. You talk about, business, everything, even medicine. And that's something I'm really fascinated about. I really want to get into it with you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're somebody who, if I try and sum you up, Mark Cuban, in my opinion, is somebody who has always been in touch with what's happening in the world and trying to figure out what it means for both themselves and the people living in that world. So
thank you.
When you look at the world right now, like what's your feeling on it? Do you think things are getting better? Do you think things are staying the same, or do you think things are getting worse?
So there's tactical and there's strategic, big picture, right? Tactically, things are worse, right? Because, how we consume information has changed dramatically over the past 5 years even, and it continues to change. And I think that's a real problem. And that's led to a lot of people falling into their own echo chamber and disassociating with each other. And that's a problem. But on the bright side, what I see in my kids, I'm very positive. Other than climate change always being a topic, they're positive about the future. They're excited and I feel good about them and the impact that they can have. So on one hand, when I look at Gen Z and our kids, I'm really positive and excited. On the other hand, when I look at adults, it reminds me of, I'm a baby boomer, and what a disappointment my generation has turned into. We started off really, really good with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and we started off, protesting the Vietnam War and yada, yada, yada. And now we're the Fox News generation going down the rabbit holes. And that's kind of disappointing. But, again, Father Time is undefeated, and the kids that are, the kids are our future. I know every parent, every generation says that, but I truly believe it.
Let me ask you this. Like, I'd love to know how you think you've maintained this ability to both be honest, but then also find a way to grow within the views that you have. Because, I saw a post of yours. It's funny. I think both of us comment on it in different ways. But this whole Boeing, the Boeing plane where the door blew off. Yeah, and everyone's been speaking about that. And it was really fascinating how a lot of people online, and I think many of them, spurred on by Elon Musk, started talking about how, you see, this is what happens when you have diversity. Boeing started having diversity and the plane started falling apart. And you wrote this amazing post. You just laid out the facts. You said, hey, first of all, this is not what diversity is. Diversity is about expanding our scope to make sure that everyone gets looked at for the hiring, because a lot of people weren't looked at for the hiring. And then you said something that I really, really loved, that I hope more people think about. You said, we need to, and I'm paraphrasing, you basically said, we need to let go of the notion that we know who will be right for every job, and understand that most of the time we are guessing based on a set of parameters that we've chosen. What did you mean by that?
So as an entrepreneur and somebody who has hired forever and then actually learned I'm really bad at hiring and turned it over to others, most jobs, 99% of jobs, it's impossible to tell which candidate out of however many is the best. If you're hiring a barista, how do you know who the best barista is? Do you give them, you put them behind a counter and say, how fast can you make that mocha? You just don't know. If you're hiring for a sales rep, maybe you can look at their history, but when you put them in this new position, you don't know. And there's a reason why they're willing to leave their last job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so 99% of the time when you're hiring, it's a guess. And so the whole idea that you can just use merit to make a determination in how you hire for every job is just wrong. And anybody who's hired, quite a few positions just knows that. And so, and I wanted to get that out there because it was on Twitter X, right? And the way it's all set up there, it's Elon's little echo chamber that rewards people that he rewards.
Right.
And so I knew I was going into the lion's den, and that people were just going to shit on me left and right, which is exactly why I wrote it, right? Because that made it more interesting, more fun. But it also, that was the audience that needed to hear it. And if there was, one light bulb that came on, that's a win.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that about you. The way you think about the world, it's really interesting. It's dynamic. Obviously, I also love it because you're involved in sport. You said something about sports as well in that post, where you said, as somebody who's worked in sports for a long time, I've realized even if you draft the best player, they may not end up being the best player, and some of the undrafted players go on to be the best players.
Correct.
What do you think? What do you think of the current players that have been drafted? I mean, Victor Wembanyama. That seems like it was the right choice.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's phenomenal, right? I mean, we've got a great young crop of players who are just getting better. The league is really competitive on any given night. And what's interesting, Trevor, social media has acted in some respects as a training course. Like when I was a kid growing up, there were no trainers. You didn't, you just went to your basketball team or football team and whenever you had practice, and then you worked on your game, maybe some afterwards. Now there's instructional videos online for every position in every sport, and the skill levels are going. Yeah. The skill levels are going higher and higher and higher, and so the players are better. The quality of the games are better, and I think that's overall a positive.
What do you think fans do not understand about the running of a team? Because as fans, there is no denying that we all think we can do a much better job than every team owner and every manager that exists in sport. If you're a fan, you sit watching the games, whether you're at the stadium or whether you're at home, and you go, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they get that player?
I know,
why didn't they? These idiots don't know what they're doing.
Amen.
What do you think fans don't know that might change their perspective on what it means to actually run a team?
I don't know if it'll change their perspective, but I think they don't truly understand the impact of luck. I'll give you the all-time luck story. Like Steph Curry, arguably one of the top 5 players of all time. When he first got started, there was a backcourt mate of his, Monte Ellis, who ended up playing for the Mavs, actually. Also very good, maybe even a little better than Steph at the time. And Golden State was getting ready to do a trade with the Milwaukee Bucks for Andrew Bogut. They gave the Milwaukee Bucks the choice of Steph Curry or Monte Ellis. If the Bucks had taken Steph Curry, history is written completely differently in the NBA. Luck is just such a huge component. Luck is such a huge impact in sports, every sport. And I don't think fans truly appreciate that. As much as as fans we think we're smart, as owners sometimes we think we're smart, general managers think they're smart. I'll take luck over smart every single time.
I'll take luck over smart every single time.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Mavs have been a powerhouse team for a long time. Many have correctly attributed that success to you. What did you change in an organization that had been running for so long that enabled it to become the successful institution that it is today? Because it wasn't always what it is today, and now it's turned into a powerhouse. What do you think you changed?
Well, it's what I didn't change. I had a great player named Dirk Nowitzki that I kept for a long, long time. A great player, Luka Doncic. So sometimes it's what you don't do that's the smartest thing you do. I remember coming in and I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to run it the way I run a business. I'm an entrepreneur. What's worked for me, why would I change? And so I came in immediately like, okay, we're going to train the players. So we're traditionally basketball teams had 3 or 4 coaches. We had 15. We had one player development coach for every player. Now that every team does that. We were going to make it so that, players got the best of everything because they travel, their bodies are their job, right? So I just brought common sense, I think, more than anything else. And it wasn't that it was any notion that was so ridiculously creative. It was just common sense. And the old guys who ran the teams before I got to the NBA just didn't think that way.
What do you think of politics in sports? I ask this because 2024 is going to ramp up. It's going to gear up to be. I would argue, and I hope I'm wrong. By the way, I think it may be one of the most vicious elections America has been involved in a very long time. Yep. And athletes and sports teams are always caught in this strange place where some people believe sports should always remain agnostic. It should only be about sport and allow it to be an escape for people. Others will say, no, this is a platform. People have a responsibility. This is where they can speak out. But then the debate becomes, what can they speak out about, and how much of it can they speak out to? What's your opinion on athletes and franchises and politics?
Well, there may be debate, but the reality is when you become a high-profile professional athlete, you don't lose your rights as a citizen. And if it's important to you and what you believe in, and you have a platform, of course you're going to use it. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's just like you use your platform, I use my platform, because we've earned that right to do that. And if it's important to us, we use it. So while I may not agree with what every athlete says across every sport, I certainly respect their right to do so. And in terms of teams, that's a little bit more difficult, because no matter what, you're going to have fans and customers who are on both sides of the aisle or both sides of any topic.
Right.
And so, we'll try to be supportive of the things we truly believe in without going overboard. So we'll put out a statement saying, look, this is what we believe and this is what we agree in, and we'll leave it at that, right? We're not going to go out there and invest in, buying advertising to promote this point of view or anything. We'll use our social media platforms, make our statement, and pretty much leave it at that.
Help me break this down. You're not leaving the team, but you are selling your majority stake.
Right. So I still have 27% and I'll still run basketball operations. But the reality is, sports evolve. And when I first got in 2000, technology and media were really the driving factors for revenue. And I was good at those things.
Yeah.
I'm good at those things, right? And so I had a competitive advantage and I was able to generate revenue. Now that's changing. The media, as you know better than anybody, right? Media has changed dramatically. The incumbent companies no longer in the position of strength that they once were. Revenue scenarios are changing dramatically. And that change has meant that in order to be a leading revenue generating team, which pays for those salaries, you have to be in real estate, you have to be in entertainment centers, and just potentially casinos. And those are things I don't have the slightest clue in. And so I don't need to pretend that I can afford to spend $1 billion in something I don't understand. So I brought in a great partner. I brought in great partners, Patrick Dumont, who runs the Sands, and Marian Adamson, who is one of the owners. And they know that stuff inside and out. They have those types of properties around the world, and they're amazing. And so they made a great partner. They're not, hardcore they're basketball fans, but they don't want to run a team, and I don't want to run a real estate operation.
You're also stepping away from Shark Tank.
I got one more year. Yeah.
One more year. Then you're out there as well.
Then I'm out, yeah.
It feels like this is a period of transitions for you.
No. No.
No?
No. It's not a transition. It's just, self-awareness and reality setting in, right? On one hand, like I just said, I don't know real estate, and I'm not going to mess around with $1 billion to find out, right? I don't need to fuck around and find out for $1 billion. Two, on Shark Tank, while my kids were all in high school or younger, all their schedules were aligned. And, when we were shooting Shark Tank in September and June, all right, we can make it all work. And then in between, the kids would do what we tell them to do. Now my oldest is a sophomore in college, and she wants to do her own thing. The middle one is a really good rower, and she's getting recruited, and she's working her ass off to be amazing. And so their schedule drives the train, not mine. And so I don't want to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So one more year, because I don't want to leave Shark Tank hanging, because I still love the show. I still love what it stands for. And those reruns will run for the next 700 years. But I just wanted more time with my kids. That's it in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I thought you were running for president.
No. My kids would disown me. My family would disown me if I did that. So no.
Oh, so you wouldn't consider it at all?
No, just because my family. No, if with my kids and everything, this is just, I don't want to look back when I'm 95 and say, oh yeah, that extra season of Shark Tank really made the difference instead of going to Europe with my family, or boy, I'm glad I ran for president and got my ass kicked because, and missed those 3 years or 4 years. No, it's just, I'm not young, but I'm not so old that I couldn't, put it off 4 years or 8 years, or if I decide to do anything. Yeah.
Don't go anywhere, because we got more What Now after this. Let's talk about some of the other things Mark Cuban is involved in. You are engaged in one of the most interesting ventures ever, and this is about getting people access to low-cost drugs, medicine. One of the craziest things about living in America is being in a country that is a first world country, that is one of the richest nations in the world, that excels in almost everything business-wise and all of these ideas. And the healthcare system
it's just insane.
Is just horrendous.
Insane.
Like, people people have to keep jobs that they don't want to keep because they're terrified of losing their health care and they can't support their family's health. And the whole system is tied up into this weird, gunky mess that doesn't work the way it should. You've stepped in and you've decided to, really, really shake things up.
Yep.
Talk to me about like the inception and the idea behind this, because there are very few people who could do this. And I want to know why you thought you could do this and how you think you're going to do it without being blackballed by the big boys.
Right. So costplusdrugs.com is the name of the company. And I started becoming a healthcare geek probably 6-7 years ago during the Trump administration, when they said they were going to try to get rid of the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and they didn't have anything to replace it. So I'm like, okay, if the shit hits the fan, I want to at least, understand what's going on. And nothing.
Well, to be fair to Trump, he said he was going to replace it with something much better, something much better.
Like he always
There were no
does.
specifics, but he did say,
like he always does,
say
right?
he was going to replace it with something much better.
And why would we not believe him, right? But just because I'm curious and I wanted to know more. So I started getting into it, and just, happenstance, I got a cold email from a Dr. Alex Oshmayansky, who was starting a compounding pharmacy in Denver. And what he wanted to do was take generics that were in short supply and make them and sell them cheaper. The challenge was with that is that it was very difficult to scale. So we started talking. I'm like, okay, let's start this company where we sell these generics that you wanted to make, but we just buy them and sell them. But we're very transparent about our pricing. And let's call it costplusdrugs.com, because we were able to get that URL. So we started it. And the whole premise is very, very simple. We buy drugs, we sell drugs from costplusdrugs.com, but we show you our cost. We show you our 15% markup. We show you our shipping and handling fees. And that's it. But by doing that, a couple things happened. We publish our price list. So now everybody who buys any type of medication at all, even if you have good insurance, you may go to costplusdrugs.com and see that the medication you take by buying from us is cheaper than your copay from your great insurance program at work. So, but by putting that transparent price list out there and by limiting our markup to 15%, we're able to sell a lot of medications just thousands, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars cheaper than what they were being sold for before. Because what happens in our healthcare system, talking about, being screwed up, you go to your doctor, he says, okay, Trevor, I'm going to prescribe you this. And the next words out of his mouth aren't, can you afford it? Or let's talk about cost. It's, what pharmacy do you use? And then you go to the pharmacy and you may or may not even know what your copay is. You don't know what the cost is. The company that you work for who's paying for the health insurance, if they are paying, doesn't know what they're paying. There's just no transparency whatsoever. So by introducing transparency, now everybody's getting to see that they're paying too much for their medications. And that's had a profound change in the entire industry. And now these incumbents, they're trying to copy us. Now they're lying when they try to do it. They say, okay, we're starting our own cost plus program, but they get to pick the cost that they mark up, and they don't tell you the markup, et cetera, et cetera. So now costplusdrugs.com, we've had millions of customers. I don't even know how much money we've saved. We've had scenarios where, we hear this every week. It seems like somebody was paying, $26,000 a year, and we cut their costs down to $200 a year. Right? They went to CVS, and the price for their chemotherapy medication was going to be $2,000, and our price was $21. It's just completely insane is right. And it's just the first step for us. Right now, we went, like when we last talked about this, I think we had probably hundreds of drugs. Now we're up to 2,400 drugs. By this time next year, we'll have a full complement of brand drugs.
Help me understand this then. Am I correct or am I naive in assuming that the price of medicines in America are only the prices of medicines in America because these drug companies are greedy and can afford to be greedy because nobody stops them?
No, that's actually not the case. And so,
okay, what is it then?
It's crazy. So two things. First, there's generic drugs and there's branded drugs, right? So Eliquis, branded, right, et cetera. So
Viagra branded, et cetera.
Right. But there's a generic for Viagra. I'm not saying I know anybody who uses it, but there is. And so, for generic drugs, those 2,400 plus drugs that we sell at Cost Plus Drugs, we're cheaper than any other country in the world except maybe India and China. So if there's people from Canada who are trying to get us to sell them generics in Canada and in other
Germany, so now you
cetera.
flipped it around, because normally people want to buy from Canada because it's cheaper. Correct. Now you flipped that around.
Correct, for generic drugs. Now on branded drugs typically are sold through insurance or Medicare. And most people have Medicare Advantage if they have Medicare, and that works through an insurance company. And it's the insurance company, the big insurance companies, and what's called a pharmacy benefit manager that negotiates those prices with big pharma, who in turn is forced by those companies to pay a big rebate. And because they're paying rebates to the PBMs, that jacks up the price of the retail price of that brand drug. So when you talk to the manufacturers of those drugs, there's exceptions. There's some drugs that, like the weight loss drugs, right? They can't even make enough. They're keeping those prices high no matter what. And the rebate's not impacting them at all. But for most brand drugs, it's not the manufacturer that's selling it at the highest price. It's the insurance company and the pharmacy benefit manager who are jacking it up so they can retain a rebate. So literally when we come in and add transparency, the brand manufacturers, the big pharma guys, they love us because we bring.
So they don't mind you because you're actually stepping in as.
Right. So look at it this way. If a drug is retail priced at $1,000 and they pay a 64% rebate, which is about the right number, to that pharmacy benefit manager, they're only getting $360 out of that $1,000 drug. Right. So
the drug company doesn't mind making that $300 because they're making the $300 no matter what.
They're making the $300, but they'd rather sell that drug through us and us just mark it up 15% rather than it being sold for $1,000. So that's part of our battle right now, because those pharmacy benefit managers don't want the brand manufacturers to sell through us, and that's leading to even other problems because the insurance companies and the pharmacy benefit managers, they're maybe destroying is too strong a word, but really negatively impacting the independent pharmacy business. That local pharmacy that works with your grandma and has known her for 30 years, right? They actually, when you buy that brand drug from your local pharmacy, the pharmacy is now losing money on those brands, and they're losing more and more money because of the games the pharmacy benefit managers play. And it's horrific. And so we're trying to work directly with the pharma manufacturers to help. We put together a network of independent pharmacies. So instead of losing $10 every time they sell a brand drug, they're going to start making money. And this is going to sound crazy, but if you work for a local independent pharmacist and you're getting a brand drug, ask them if they're losing money on it and if there's a way to do a cash price, or even ask them if you can tip them. Because literally, I've started tipping my local independent pharmacy because they are getting crushed when they sell you.
This is depressing.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. There's thousands of independent pharmacists are just toast because of these rules and these chargebacks and all these games the pharmacy benefit managers are playing. And you know what? To make matters worse, when you look at a pharmacy benefit manager, if I put on my Shark Tank hat and they walked in on Shark Tank and I said, okay, what is the one thing that you do that every one of your customers needs and can't live without? There's not one damn thing. There's not one thing that they do. It's just that they're so big.
They're just
scale.
Right. They're just in the right position.
Exactly right. They just have scale, and it's the way it's always been done. And we are going to fuck them up. I promise you, with everything I have.
I hope so, man. I really, really hope so. I feel like if there's one person who can do it, it's you. You've been doing that your whole life. You found the gaps. You found the opportunities. You found the moments where there's, and I think what I appreciate about this situation is there's a lesson that I think many people don't seem to understand, is that you can make money and you can profit whilst not completely just like ripping people off and taking everything away from them.
For sure.
And you're seeing that right now in America, where obviously inflation is up and, post-COVID, everything shot up. But then you see these companies where they used that opportunity to raise their prices more than they would have normally.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's like you can still make a profit without completely ripping people off.
The most important product for any company starting right now, or any company period, is trust. Because nobody trusts anybody at all. And that's why in healthcare, by being transparent, we build trust, because that really, right, where our prices are important, the fact that we're transparent, trust is our number one prize.
Yeah.
Companies are starting to realize that, and more, particularly young entrepreneurs, recognize that I can do well by doing good, or do good by doing well, right? And I think that's really changing things. Now, it's obviously, like you said, there's companies like, you look at your water bottle, it used to be 24 ounces, now it's 23 ounces. Your cereal used to be 12 ounces, now it's 11 ounces. But we don't raise our prices, right?
Slick.
Yeah, it's really slick, right? But there's a real opportunity for entrepreneurs there, if you can just live up to the trust that people expect.
You've stepped into multiple different fields and you've disrupted them. You came into sports with a new attitude. You've stepped into medicine with a new attitude. A lot of people may not know this, but really one of the biggest things you did was in tech. You self-taught when it came to coding. You knew computers were going to be huge. You were working on networks as a youngster. You were really ahead of the game when it came to this. I'd love to know what you think of this next revolution that we're witnessing right now. AI is ubiquitous. AI is in everything, everywhere you go now, from your car rental agency to your language learning app to you name it. AI is involved, and obviously there's going to be benefits, and then there are also things that we should be wary about. But as somebody who has not just made a lot of money in tech, but also spent a lot of time in tech, like what are your views on AI? What's your...
So from a business perspective, there's only two types of companies: the companies that are great at AI and everybody else. That's it. You have to know AI, and AI breaks into, both for our regular lives and business lives, AI breaks into two types. One, there's the large language models, the ChatGPT, and that's really the biggest important part. And then there's just using AI for optimization, right? How do I ship my widgets faster and better and cheaper than before? But for the large language models, it's going to change everything. Some little kid born today, their life is going to be insane. And I'll give you an example. Right now, like, I have emails. Like I said, I do everything via email, right? If I were to take all those emails that I have going back 30 years and put them into a large language model, and I created a hologram of myself. I actually have a company who does holograms, Hypervision, and combine those two together, you could have this conversation with my hologram. And if the quality of hologram was good enough, you wouldn't know it wasn't me. Because a large language model is able to ingest as much information from a person, by a person, about a person
as you can feed it.
Right. Now imagine that for your little baby, and all those videos we take on our phone, all the first goo goo gagas, all the first steps, all their papers, all their drawings, and you put that into, Trevor's baby's large language model. By the time that you're doing that for 10, 12 years, that best friend is that little kid's best friend is themselves out of a large language model. It is going to be insane.
That is scary. Though.
Every kid, just like kids now have social media accounts, they will have their own large language models. There'll be tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, of large language models. Every kid will have their own. It may run their social media for them.
It's funny you say that. One of the biggest I would say one of the biggest GPTs that's been hyped. So, ChatGPT has these, the offshoots where people can create their own and sell them off.
Right.
And even though they've basically banned it, one that's really popular is a ChatGPT girlfriend or boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And what people are doing now is they're actually dating their ChatGPT.
Yes.
And people are saying they're having more fulfilling relationships.
Of course they are.
Feel less lonely. They feel more connected.
Of course. I mean, think about, when you were a teenager, no matter what generation, right? You're sitting in front of a TV, you're listening to music, and you're connecting to your music, right? And your music spiritually fulfilled you. Or you're teaching yourself an instrument, or you buy yourself a little guitar. Like, I remember sitting for hours trying to, C, D, G, right? And just teach myself, and we try to connect in whatever way, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may be that we can. And this is a way where they don't fight back, right? And they work on your schedule, and you don't have to be an expert, and there's no expectations. And now, on the extremes, there's always going to be negative consequences, right? Somebody takes it too far one way or the other. But in the middle, I think it's a positive, right? Because there's somebody there to talk to you. There's somebody there. And with all these tens of millions of large language models, you'll be able to say, there's this psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever it may be, social worker who has some really interesting things. I'm going to get that module for my 15-year-old because I think having that large language model to talk to that I know has been influenced by somebody I trust is going to be a positive.
Man, it is both equally. It's terrifying and exciting in equal measure because we don't know what to expect. It's one of the few times in human history where we're living on the precipice.
You don't live in the world you were born into,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, Mark, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests on the podcast, and that is, what now? I feel like it's the perfect time to ask it to you because you're opening up space and place in your life, and you've answered some of it, but you're stepping away from some of the positions you hold on the basketball team, the Dallas Mavericks. You are, going to be stepping away from Shark Tank in a year. So what now? What does Mark Cuban look at as the next era of his life?
I mean, my kids and healthcare. Right. I mean, I'm not someone who thinks about legacy a lot. I'm certainly not the type of person to put my name on a building. But at the same time, I think if I can have enough of an impact on healthcare where, people don't have to stress about it the way they are, where people, we get to a point where healthcare is a right. It's not an affordability issue. Yeah. I think we can get there. When I look at what I know now about healthcare, there's a lot that can be stripped away, and there's a path to get there that's not as difficult, I think, as people think. And so if I can just keep on grinding it out every single day and just, taking another brick out of that wall, I think there's a lot of really cool changes that can happen that can make this country a better place.
It's a fantastic idea to have for your future, spending more time with family and trying to help other people spend more time with their families, ironically, because of their health. Well, Mark Cuban, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you for your insights. And good luck for the season and everything else that you do, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Trevor. It's always fun.
Do you think this could be the first topic where we don't agree at all?
Yes, which has made me afraid.
Huh.
Yeah, because normally there's some overlap, or I can even see where you're coming from.
Oh, you don't even think you'll be... Okay, but wait. So help me understand this.
Yeah.
We say we're going to have we're going to have a conversation. We're going to be speaking to Michael Pollan. He has single-handedly changed the perception of millions and millions of people when it comes to psychedelics. And it's not only psychedelics, he wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma, This Is Your Mind on Plants, How to Change Your Mind. And he's written beautiful accounts of how we see the world of what we take. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite books of his just even talks about how we see coffee versus how we see something like taking, mushrooms or marijuana. And he goes, coffee... It's a drug that has suited the establishment, and so that's why it's allowed to stay around. So he's explored everything, but it's interesting how now, and we'll talk to him a little bit about it, it's like now he has become the de facto go-to guy on mushrooms and psychedelics and, And yes, it's funny you say he's the guru, but he's not even trying to present himself as a guru. He's like, no. He's not. He's like, guys, I'm a journalist.
I'm just a guy.
He's like, I'm a journalist.
No, you're the chosen
and everyone's
one.
like, you are the guru. Where do I score myself some dope shrooms? Yeah, but it's funny. I've never seen you recoil like this.
I know. And I've been thinking about it. Even, I may have prayed about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I was just like, I don't want people at home to think like I'm like this lock them up conservatives about people that do recreational drugs.
Okay.
But I may be a little bit.
Okay.
No, okay. I think it brings up some stuff for me.
Is this because of your upbringing? Because for me, I think about growing up and my perception of drugs. So I didn't touch weed So I'll even take it before even like drugs. My mom doesn't drink, my mom doesn't smoke, my dad doesn't drink, my dad doesn't smoke. All right. So I grew up in a home where that wasn't a thing. My grandmother, etc. And my mom said to me when I was 12, 13, maybe even younger, she came to my room and she had cigarettes and she had beer. And she said to me, "Do you want?" And I was like, "Oh, this is a trap. Obviously, this is a trap." And I was almost disappointed, and I was like, "Come on, lady, I'm not gonna fall for a trap like that. You're gonna come into my room and offer me cigarettes." And she was like, "Do you want to try them?" And I was like, "No, because these are bad things, and we should never." And then she said to me, "Listen, honey, you're gonna encounter alcohol, you're gonna encounter cigarettes and things. So if you're gonna use it, I would rather know that you use it, and then you use it at home, and then I don't worry that now you're out in the world using it." Hiding it from me and then getting into situations where you can't share that you're using
Harm
it.
reduction.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Which is wild. I mean, my mom is like super religious and super strict and super
very progressive.
Yeah. And so then she didn't even know how to like light a cigarette. So we had to go to an uncle of mine. And then he was like, "Trevor, what's up?" And she said he wants to try cigarettes. And the guy was like, "Okay, you want to smoke?" And he gave us the cigarettes. And I puffed with him. And I was like, "This is trash. This is so." I was like, "How is the taste in your mouth?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It tastes like someone's like eating everything disgusting and then farting it into your oral cavity. And then the alcohol beer just tastes like old water that has dribbled down a sewer into.
I'm a bad Brit. I don't like it.
So I didn't like any of that. And then drugs was almost in the same category for me.
Because of that initial experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, drugs, the way I grew up was, you are a loser. You are going to end your life. That's how I knew drugs.
So that hasn't changed now? That was just when you grew up?
That's how I knew drugs. That's all I was told. These are the things that'll happen when you take drugs. So I didn't touch weed. I smoked weed for the first time when I was 21.
Okay.
That's how anti-drug. I used to judge people, and I would look at them and I would say to them, "It is a pity that you've chosen to do this with your life." I used to say that to my cousin. So I can see where you might come from.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's all of those things and a bit more.
All right.
But yeah, I just...
Are you open to a conversation about it?
I'm open to a conversation. And I think the thing that bothers me about this, I'm sad I'm not nuanced, because I pride myself on being like gray area, nuance, both sidism almost.
Yes.
And on this, I'm like, no.
Okay.
So yeah.
The African mom has finally
arrived. The
arrived.
African mom has just emerged and is just here. And the more I seem to read, the deeper I go into know. That's why I'm really curious about today's conversation.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Michael, welcome to the podcast. But let me ask you this. Do you think, or do you find that people become more open to the idea of exploring, even the idea of psychedelics when they read? Or do you find that people become more closed off?
I find when people read, they do become more open. There are a couple things that make people more open. And by the way, Christiana, I'm not going to advocate you do anything. And it's
I'm going to advocate for that.
I know, that's what Trevor's here for.
I'm going to advocate.
It's perfectly okay not to do these drugs. When I started talking about this, right when my book came out, and I was talking to various groups of people, and I would notice when I spoke in positive terms about psychedelics, I found that unless I started talking about risk right at the beginning, there was always a person or two in the room before I said anything more about it. This person would not open her ears. So I learned in my conversations where I was trying to get a hearing for what have turned out to be some therapeutically really important substances. And the key was, let's talk about risk right at the beginning. Can you get addicted to these substances? Can you overdose on these substances? Because I came very late. I didn't use a psychedelic till I was in my late 50s. I was somebody who, with a family who, and lots of responsibilities. And I did a lot of investigation. Well, how dangerous are these things?
Right.
And I found that on the classical psychedelics, and it's important to define what we're talking about, LSD, mushrooms or psilocybin, DMT, but not ketamine and not MDMA. These are not technically psychedelics. There is no recorded lethal dose. That's quite remarkable because you have drugs in your medicine cabinet. If you have Tylenol, that is lethal at about 17 pills.
But before we get into that, Michael, I love the idea of speaking about risk first.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually seen you do this in more than one setting. My favorite encounter with Michael and watching this in real life was we were at an event where it was myself, Michael, and then Oprah Winfrey, Gayle King, and Ava DuVernay.
Right.
And this is like a weird motley crew of people who found themselves around a table. And I don't know if it was Oprah or Ava who starts off and says, "Wait, you're the mushroom guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, mushrooms, it's amazing, this whole thing, do you know?" And I'll never forget, like, the more I was speaking, I thought I was convincing people. Oprah's face got more and more concerned. Gayle looked at me with more and more compassion. You know how Gayle is. Like, Gayle looked at me like, "Oh, Trevor, do we need to call somebody?" And Ava looked like the cops were about to, like, swarm in. And it was interesting to watch because when Michael started speaking, the first thing you spoke about was risk. The first thing you talked about was, hey, you cannot guarantee any outcome. You've got to be worried about your physical, the physical aspect. And I watched them slowly turn their bodies from the outside of a conversation back to the inside of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we can talk a little bit about that aspect. So what are the risks then? Like if you cannot overdose, what are, like, for somebody like Christiana who's going like this, you guys are putting yourself at so much risk. What are the actual risks?
Well, if you put LSD in one of those classic setups with a rat given 2 levers to press, and it administers a drug to its veins, with amphetamines, cocaine, they will press that lever until they're addicted and they die. If you put LSD in that setup, they'll try it once and never again.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't sound like an endorsement.
No, it's not. I mean,
like the
animals,
rat's like, no thanks.
Well, I mean, imagine being a rat and trying to interpret what's going on. We don't know what kind of experience they have. There's actually a study underway to try to figure out if rats and mice have the sort of mental, hallucinations.
Yeah.
All we know now is they head twitch when they take LSD, and that's not very useful for research. So those are so no risk of addiction, no risk of overdose. The risks are of a psychotic break. I mean, there are people who have a psychotic experience. Sometimes it's just it looks like a psychotic experience, and it's just a panic attack. There's a wonderful story that Dr. Andrew Weil tells about working in the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic in 1968 as a young, newly minted doctor who had had a lot of experience with psychedelics. And the doctors were all saying, people are coming in, having LSD-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
And he goes into a little examining room, and there's somebody who's absolutely flipping out. And he takes a few notes, and then he says, "Will you excuse me? There's someone in real trouble in the next room." And as soon as he said that, this person realized, wow, I'm not so fucked up as I thought I was. There's somebody more fucked up than me. And they were fine. So he understood what was going on in a way that the other doctors didn't. But people do flip out. And these experiences can be mitigated, I think, if you work with a guide, someone who's with you to talk you down when this kind of thing happens. But without question, the bad trip is real, and it can be absolutely terrifying. And that, as Trevor said earlier, the effects cannot be predicted. There's a kind of a physiological signature to alcohol or cocaine. That's not true with psychedelics. Everybody has their own experience. And a lot of it depends, as Timothy Leary famously said, on set and setting, that you've got to be in the right mindset, and you need to be in a very safe setting where you're not worried about the FedEx driver coming to the door or a call from your mother.
Michael, let me ask you this. I distinctly remember, and it's purely anecdotal, how the conversation around weed, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, changed when white American moms started smoking it. All of a sudden, America was like, actually, maybe it's not so bad. Tell me more, Snoop Doggy Dog. You know what I mean? It started changing.
Well, that How to Change Your Mind, my book about it was in 2018. And at that point, there were lots of people who were using psychedelics but would never talk about it publicly. And one of the things that's happened is that taboo, and none of the scientists would ever admit to ever having had an experience on the record. They would off the record, which was hard for me. But everything changed in the few years after that, and it became acceptable for people to talk about their use. But I think the big thing is the taboo, has lifted the way it did with cannabis. You're right. It was moms doing it, but what happened first was, and this was the activists did this. They rebranded cannabis from Cheech and Chong, goofiness, to medicine for AIDS patients and people with wasting syndrome and things like that. And remember, we started with medical marijuana, and that changed the image. And it may be that the same thing is happening with psychedelics, which are getting a lot of attention as a therapeutic aid. But, as one of my sources put it, they're very important for the betterment of well people also, not just people who are ill.
Yeah.
So far, though, the path that they're on, I think, is there are two paths, really. There's a medical path that we've talked about. There's also a spiritual path. There are a lot of people who are interested in religion. There was a really interesting study that hasn't been published yet that I'm writing about, where religious leaders in like 13 different faiths were given a high dose of psilocybin to see what insight they might have on the religious visions they had and the mystical experience.
And what did they find?
Well, a lot of these people were burnt out before. You're working with the dying and people at really hard times in their lives, and congregations are shrinking. And many of the ones I talked to had their faith renewed. They all had divine encounters, except for a Buddhist. So it's kind of what you'd expect. The Buddhist said, when I interviewed her, she's a Buddhist priest, and she said, "I traveled to a realm beyond concept for which there are no words."
Oh, I love that.
It was a very short interview. There was nowhere to go from there. But others they were really surprised that the divine didn't always conform to their faith. And in many cases, I think the majority, the divine was feminine. And that blew some of their minds.
I love that. God is a woman. I can get behind that.
God is a woman. So
now we've got her. Okay, wait. So what's the thing you're most like when you think about it?
It's so funny.
What's the scariest thing you think of?
What scares me? The benefits.
Wait, what?
Yeah, everything I read about the good, and I'd love Michael to go through the benefits first, and then I'll explain why I found it profoundly terrifying.
Wait. I thought you were going to be like...
this is interesting.
Wait, I thought you were going to tell me that you're afraid of...
Yeah, but all of that stuff also exists with alcohol, which I think if it was invented today, we probably wouldn't sell it so freely. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff exists with other substances. But psychedelics, for me, the more I read, it was the benefits that was like, this is some cultist, scary shit. And people should just be Pentecostals. But Michael, I want you to talk through the benefits, particularly what did take me was end-of-life care.
This was the most moving work that I saw getting done, which was people with cancer diagnoses, many of them terminal, having a guided psychedelic session. This happened at NYU in New York and at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And I interviewed a lot of these people, and they had their whole attitude toward death and their anxiety changed. Some had the experience of developed a confidence that something would happen to their consciousness after they died. Other people had incredibly naturalistic scenarios in their head about what would happen. I remember one woman describing that she'd been flying all over the world and then went into the ground and was kind of disaggregated, and her molecules were taken up by plants.
Wow.
And now this is not a supernatural idea. This actually happens, right?
Yes. Yeah, but to feel it, I mean...
But she felt it, and she identified with it. And she identified with something beyond her ego that made it easier to think about her death, that we are all interconnected. and that in some way she would go on. And yes, her ego would not, but that was okay. And then this experience of what's called ego dissolution, of feeling that yourself has kind of been, I mean, I describe in the book this experience of seeing myself explode into a cloud of blue Post-it notes, which then fluttered to the ground and formed this pool of thick blue paint. And from some new perspective, I'm observing this, and I was like, okay, this is perfectly fine. That's okay, being a puddle of blue paint. I don't have a problem with that. But what happens when your ego dissolves is that the barrier, your ego is a wall, is a defensive structure, right? And when the walls come down, there's nothing separating you from whatever is out there.
We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. I have friends who took psychedelics as atheists and then called me and said, I now believe in a God. I'm talking about the most skeptical, just like calloused individuals. They go like, I die and nothing. It's
straight
dust.
up materialist.
You forget, you forget about this is stupid. And then they take psychedelics and they will say to me, look, I don't know what it's called. I don't know who made it or whether it made me or how it works or doesn't work, but I now know that it exists. And you see them develop a different connection with themselves and with this idea that goes beyond themselves. And I always wonder, actually, Michael, like, you know, we know that psychedelics affect, or at least mushrooms in particular, affect our neuroplasticity, right? So essentially what it does is it interrupts your brain's ability to make assumptions about things, which is how the human brain needs to work.
Yeah.
Right? The reason a baby is enamored by a box is because their brain is constantly going like, whoa, what is this? Whoa. And then at some point you're like, it's a box. That's why when we have like cake, you know that, what's it called again? You know the trend. You guys know the
and
trend
it's
I'm
not
talking
a
about.
cake.
Yeah,
but cake's not cake.
Yeah, but you know why that
you
messes
think
with
it's a pencil,
us. Yes,
but it's
exactly.
not cake. Okay, yeah.
So one of the reasons that messes with us and mesmerizes us so much as adults is because it's sort of returning us back to being a baby. Babies are constantly living in a world of, is it cake? You with me?
Yes.
So when you play peekaboo with a baby, when you cover your eyes, you know you're gone to them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the baby's like, where did you go? And then you open your eyes.
They're such idiots.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why they live in so much wonder. That's why they're like, wow, the world is so big.
And sorry, Trevor, this is I think part of my objection. Yeah. That shortcut to wonder.
No, but it's not necessarily about the wonder that I'm talking. I'm talking about the brain being interrupted in creating a fixed idea of what it is and what reality is or isn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But meditation can do that, no?
You've never meditated so much that you thought something was cake. Don't lie.
Okay, all right.
Everyone who tells me this, you're lying. Everyone.
Okay. Do you know what? I come from a spiritual tradition where people really believe in the transcendent and the supernatural. Like, I was raised in a Pentecostal tradition where people speak in tongues, they fall on the floor. It's all of this somatic body work. They see visions all the time. Like, they have these out-of-body experiences constantly, and they don't use shrooms.
Some of them say they have the experiences, but they don't necessarily.
I mean, if they say it, it's still true. It's true to them.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
And it's true to people who take psychedelics, their insights in the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both subjective opinions.
That can't be proven.
But the people having these religious experiences, you know, there is brain chemistry involved there too.
Yes.
So we're talking about, you know, chemicals produced by your own brain or chemicals introduced to your brain. That's the distinction. And I don't know, you know, how important a distinction that is. But I think that going back to what Trevor said, we don't really take in the world anymore as adults, right? We have a set of predictions and beliefs. And so that's why we don't think about boxes. It's just a box and it's just cake. And that we have stopped having the kind of what's sometimes called lantern consciousness of children, where they take in information from everywhere and everything's, you know, awesome and wonderful. We have what's called spotlight consciousness, which is very useful for getting stuff done. But it gives you a kind of focus. And it's based on the world being as the world usually is. And so very little new information comes in. Our senses are only being used to correct the predictions that our minds are making. That's it. What psychedelics appear to do is short circuit that predictive machinery. And what that means is they can help you break out of habits of thinking and habits of behavior that you're stuck in, because you're predicting that, I'm the kind of person who can't get through the day without a drink.
Yeah.
This is a prediction about who you are and an identity you're stuck in. And the psychedelics, Trevor mentioned plasticity. They make the mind more plastic, and they essentially temporarily dissolve those habits of thought. And that's very useful for people struggling with addiction, for people struggling with eating disorders, people struggling with obsessive compulsive. I mean, these are all disorders where you're stuck in a loop and you have some habit of thought you can't break. And psychedelics appears to be able to help people break those habits.
I'm curious, can it, and this is a completely serious question, can it be used to treat racism? Because that is a pattern. No, that is to me, that's, I know
you're being serious.
I'm being so serious.
No, I know you're being serious. That's maybe what made it funnier for me.
It's not a ridiculous question.
No, but I'm like,
not. That's what made it so
all
funny.
right, some people have anorexia, some people have depression, but a lot of people have
racism, right?
Are you or your loved ones suffering from racism? Do you find yourself hating people because of the color of their skin?
No, like racism, homophobia, these are real,
consider shrooms. Talk to your doctor about shrooms.
It's a serious question.
I like it. It caught me off guard.
Okay, can it be used to treat racism, homophobia, etc.?
It's a hypothesis that needs to be tested. They do change people's beliefs. There's a general belief that the direction of those changes are toward feeling more like other people, more connected to other people, more connected to nature, less tolerance for authoritarianism. I haven't seen a study looking at racial attitudes, but it stands to reason that if there is this very common feeling of I love everybody, we're all one, and so it's not out of the question. It would be very interesting to test. I mean, racism is a habit of thought, right?
Because I actually thought about police officers. When you said that thing about our minds making these predictions, I thought of, sure, we can look at these institutions as racist and these are terrible people, but they are basing everything they do based on predictions and biases that often that they can't help themselves. To me, it's interesting if shrooms can unravel that, in a way that I think words and even living in sometimes diverse environments cannot.
Well, what happens with these experiences is that people begin to write new stories about who they are, about how the world works, but you need to be guided through it. The guide would talk to you about that after the experience to kind of solidify a new perception.
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen around psychedelics, particularly mushrooms, is people will go, you take this and your life changes and everything will never be the same and it's perfect. And to what Michael's saying is, I've found that people who take mushrooms unintentionally or without intention behind their action don't have the same results. All they do is they experience a moment of joy, they experience a moment of feeling connected, but then they quickly settle back into all the old patterns because they've been around for so much longer. But the people who have a guide or people who do what they call reintegration, those people spend more time in the liminal space that is thinking about what you're experiencing.
And that's another reason I didn't like it.
Why?
Because as I understand it, right, the roots of this stuff is indigenous medicine, right? It belonged to a people before it was kind of codified, and it becomes this thing that academics and, Hollywood elites and white liberal people do.
I don't think it belonged to anyone. I think people were just taking it.
Sure, but it's part of indigenous plant medicine in a way that it's not connected to the white American experience. Am I wrong, Michael?
You're partly right and partly wrong.
I love this. This is great. Great. But no. Go ahead.
Psilocybin. So So some psychedelics have an indigenous history. Psilocybin is one. It was used in Mexico and Central America for thousands of years. Peyote, Native Americans and Mexicans for 6,000 years. But LSD, MDMA, these are creations of modern, Western chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in general, the indigenous use of these substances has a lot to teach us, and that I think one of the places we went wrong in the 60s was not paying attention to the wisdom of indigenous cultures, and we figured we could create a whole new context, and we failed.
Mm-hmm. Where are we seeing the biggest changes in the adoption of psychedelics or even the acceptance of them? Where are we seeing a thrust coming from a particular segment of society in America?
I think, Silicon Valley has been a place where psychedelics are in widespread use. And these are the people who are the philanthropists funding a lot of the studies that are going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One interesting community that I've been working on, I'm writing a book about consciousness. And most of the philosophers and neuroscientists who are working on that issue are experimenting with psychedelics as an avenue of inquiry. People who are completely brain-centric people who think, of course, consciousness emerges from the neurons, are having experiences of consciousness outside of the skull.
Yeah.
And they're having crises, metaphysical crises. So that's really interesting. I don't know where that'll go. One community that's really important in this space is veterans. It's a community with high rates of trauma. 18 suicides a day in America among vets.
Yeah.
And some of them are using it, often in groups, sometimes going down to Mexico or somewhere where it's legal or quasi-legal, but that they're getting a lot of relief from trauma using a series of psychedelics. I think, you have this interesting phenomenon of microdosing, which is very low risk, and many people do it. Christiana alluded to it earlier. Some people find it very helpful. We don't have a lot of science on it to say one way or another. It may be a placebo effect, but there's nothing wrong with a placebo effect. If it works, it works. And placebos are actually driving changes in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I think, makes it very easy for people to enter into this world at low risk and potentially high reward. And that seems to be in many, many different circles.
So much to unpack here for me, because I do know part of my rejection of this is rooted in my own sense of ego. I will own that. And having a family with mental illness and addiction issues. So there's a lot of stuff around substances for me. And now we have this drug that is coming more into emergence that some people can afford a fancy guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is very expensive.
And it's very expensive, and settings, it sounds like this is something that could be hugely beneficial for people who don't have much money and can't afford a guide.
So first of all, I want to go back to what you said about family and addiction and stuff. I, like you, have family members who have struggled with predominantly alcohol.
Okay.
And that addiction, when you see it, is one of the worst things. It's one of the scariest experiences you'll have. That's why when I first encountered any semblance of something that was even considered a drug, I was like, oh, this is the escalation of that.
Yeah.
I was like, if alcohol is 10% bad, drugs are 500% bad. That's how I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I came to find is how these substances, these medicines, I would even call them, they do the opposite of alcohol. I always try and explain this to friends. I go, alcohol disconnects you from yourself, and psychedelics connect you to yourself. I've met very few people, if any actually, who go, oh yeah, I can't believe I did that. And no, alcohol will always have a story that ends with, and then I crashed the car, and then I punched this person. Psychedelics does this. It's a strange, different connection that connects people to themselves and who they actually wish to be, as opposed to who they've sort of become.
It sounds so religious.
No, it is in many ways. But you know what I like about it is it's not easily manipulated by a religious figure.
Is that how it's felt for you when you've done psychedelics?
Yeah, that's exactly how it's felt. So I think in an optimistic world, in a future, right now it's expensive. There's guides. People have made it a little what do they call it? Like glamping.
Yeah, glamping.
They've made it glamping right
glamping.
now. Yeah. But I do think there'll be apps I do think there'll be a democratization of the idea of a guide. I genuinely think it'll be very short before you'll have an AI guide on your phone.
So dystopian.
No, I know it is in some ways, but can I tell you something? I actually think that will be what opens it up to everyone in the right way. And I think that's going to open it in the right way. Because, to your point, Michael, when people have used psychedelics in the right settings, with the right company, with the right intention, I've witnessed people change their lives. Mm-hmm. I've seen people who couldn't build connections with their families. Mm-hmm. They had deep traumas that they've held their entire lives. And they couldn't, with all the talk therapy in the world, they couldn't let go of the feeling. You know the feeling you have
sure.
when somebody has traumatized you, or when you've experienced trauma because of them or around them? I've witnessed people lose that. I've seen people shift so much of who they were to who they could be because of psychedelics. And when we live in a world where so many people do what they do because they're stuck in the idea of who they are, I think of how magical it could be to find ourselves in a place where it's not, first of all, it's not a pharmaceutically controlled thing. There's no like...
Trevor, don't you want to create a world where less people feel they need to escape reality because they're so depressed, anxious, and traumatized? Like it feels
and
like...
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know if you agree, Michael.
But I feel like psychedelics are kind of like a plaster over the mother wound or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what? If we weren't in a capitalist hellscape, right, and we had good housing good schools,
challenge you on this.
And more people were healed. This is work of like prison abolitionists, right, who are like, don't put him in prison. He just needs organic food and a nice house, right?
No. But okay, let me challenge you on this real quick. I think it is beautiful for us to think of, psychedelics as a solve for what's happening now. And I think in many ways it can help with a lot of what society is going through. However, this has been as old as time. There will always be something that makes time
human
terrible.
Condition.
You're going to get eaten by a lion. That is going to traumatize you, okay?
Well, and don't forget death. I mean, you could have the perfect society, but you're still going to have death.
But that's very natural to me. Like,
well, it's very natural, but it makes people crazy.
It does.
I mean, it's very disturbing to us, and we're not very good at processing it. And so, I agree. I mean, the goal should be to remove causes of trauma, and that's a worthy goal. And being able to treat people who have been traumatized does not in any way diminish the need to address the causes of it, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so you do have to give some thought to how you treat people who've had this. In terms of democratizing it, you can I guess use technology, and maybe AIs will turn out to be very good guides. But I think this is why there is so much energy on the part of researchers in this area to get FDA approval. I mean, that's really how you reach lots of people. And that's what we were hoping would happen with MDMA, although that approval has been delayed.
Let's talk a little bit about that. This is my conspiracy theory. I'll put it out there.
I love it.
Already. There's a conspiracy theory. My conspiracy theory is that governments won't legalize or won't fully accept these medicines or these substances or whatever you want to call them. They won't formalize them until the pharmaceutical industry has figured out a way to synthesize them.
Okay.
And when they've learned how to synthesize them and sort of like corral what they do, they're going to sell synthetic versions of it to people at a marked up price that nobody can afford, right? And then what they're going to do is they're going to outlaw the stuff that people were just growing and being able to make and distribute themselves. That's my problem. Like, I'm sure there's some wonderful...
want FDA approval?
No. I'm saying they should just go like, hey, you can use it the same way they let you use alcohol, because I think, and Michael, I don't know if you have an opinion on it, but I just go like, once it becomes a formalized medicine and they block out what it has been and can be for so many people, I think then we actually end up in a world where you can't get it now because you don't have health insurance or you don't have enough money to buy the medicine, the official FDA approved. When the thing grows out of the ground, it's mushrooms. It's the most resilient thing ever.
Which is why I think it'll be hard to control. I mean, I think that the means of production are so easily acquired by everyone. But I think you're right. I mean, we saw, if you compare what happened with MDMA, whose approval was rejected by the FDA, to the approval of Spravato or S-ketamine. This is a form of ketamine approved for depression. It's a nasal inhaler. They had to do 3 phase 3 tests before they got one that showed it worked at all.
Wow.
And yet it got through. Why? Because it had big pharma behind it.
Yeah.
And it was also a drug that could be administered without any therapy. The FDA is totally stumped by the idea of what really should be called psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, because you can't remove the therapeutic component.
Yeah,
It
I agree.
really is. It's important to its effectiveness. It's as important to its safety. It mitigates the chances of bad experiences and helps people consolidate what they've learned. And the FDA is not equipped to regulate therapy. So they kind of threw up their hands. But when the business model is figured out, and it hasn't been yet for any of these substances, then big pharma will get involved. And then the sort of scenario that Trevor's describing, I'm afraid, could well come to pass.
Don't go anywhere, because we got more What Now after this.
I fit a profile of a person who's typically anti psychedelics, and that's a mother who has young children at home. And I guess so my kids hit 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Their exploration is just a normal part of adolescence. If it was sex, I'd be like, here's some condoms. you know, like everything out. And I'm like, with what we know about how adolescent brains are, their fragility, but also their ability to change so quickly, how does a parent discuss this with their 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid who's interested and who's probably going to try it? Is there a safe way for them to do it, or they need to kind of be like Ronald Reagan over here, me, and just say, don't do anything and stay in your room? And I'm just curious about what the conversations around shrooms looks like for parents to their children, and is it even appropriate for I don't mind my 15-year-old smoking some weed, but when you say they're going on a journey and they may see vampires, I'm like, I don't know about that. So Michael, a long way.
Yeah, I didn't have to deal with this. My son, by the time I got interested, my son was, well into his 20s, I think. And he had a couple experiences with
before you
mushrooms.
or after you got into it?
Before me.
Okay.
And I'll tell you very quickly what happened, because it gives you some sense of what can go wrong. He and a friend went up to Tilden Park, which is in the park above Berkeley where we live. They drove up there in our car, I should say. They took mushrooms, and his friend became convinced that his arm was falling off, and it was about to fall off. And my son could not persuade him that his arm was well attached and it wasn't a problem. They were in, I think, early high school. And, this became a freak out, and they get to a parking lot, and my son finds a sympathetic woman there and says, can you help us? My friend thinks his arm is falling off. Can you drive us to his pediatrician's office? And that's what they did. And she was able to assure him, in a way my son couldn't, that his arm was not falling off and his arm was well attached and there was nothing to worry about. And they got through it. But, my concern in that narrative is the involvement of the car, as it would be if he were using alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, and some people would disagree with me about this, but in general, you're talking about chemicals that mess with your ego. And it seems to me, until you've fully developed your ego, that might not be a good idea. And that, kids and boys in particular are still developing into their early 20s. And it seems like that might not be the best time to do it. I see psychedelics as kind of a rite of passage, and cultures are always very specific about who's eligible for a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say a 13-year-old, not ready.
No, I love that framing though, rite of passage.
No,
I love that framing.
So it's funny you say that. So I remember talking to my youngest brother about it, and he is 20. And we had this whole conversation. He was like, what is this thing about? Because he knows me. We've grown up in the same household, And so I said to my youngest brother, I said, the biggest reason I would say to you shouldn't, and this is why I would say to any young person why you shouldn't do mushrooms, is because it will not give you, other than hallucinations and but it won't give you the thing that is so important for like older people to get from it. And that is a loosening of how you see the world. Young people already have a loose view of the world. That's why they're the ones who start revolutions and they protest for different ideas and they
tech companies.
Yeah,
Facebook.
no, it's true.
Yeah.
It's all the young who think this could be different. And so I said to him, I was like, your brain is already so fantastically plastic. Why not keep that? Keep that until you find that you're stuck. And I tell this to anyone. I go, you can use mushrooms for fun, but I go, if you can use it when you're stuck in alcoholism, you're stuck in love and in relationships, and you can't figure out how to break your patterns. You're stuck in how you see the world. You're stuck in whatever it is. That's when I would say to somebody,
try Jesus.
Try.
It's like they're so interchangeable to me.
Okay. I'll say this as somebody who has done Jesus and I've done mushrooms. I've done both. I've done Jesus and I've done mushrooms. Jesus is amazing. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light.
Trevor's like, my mom's listening. I have to be careful.
Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. Don't get me wrong. But I always say, and I always talk to my mom about this, I go, don't forget, Jesus made wine when the party needed wine. So even Jesus knew that sometimes people need a little something, something. You know what I mean?
And by the way, that wine was not just wine. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that the early communion wine was spiked.
Oh, wow. Are you being serious?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, completely serious. So there are archaeologists that specialize in chemistry, and they've been looking at early communion cups. And they found one in Spain that had residues of ergot, which is the fungus from which LSD was derived.
No way.
And I know. So there is a theory, and it needs a lot more research and proof. There's a good book on this called The Immortality Key by Brian Marescu. But that there is some reason to believe that there was another drug in the communion cups, and they were trying to give people, as you know, the Native Americans had done, and many other research, a big experience. And what we have left is, this kind of Manischewitz-y wine that's, nothing special. But but once upon a time, it apparently had a real kick.
I think what I don't like is how I've seen how presidential advisors during the Nixon era and, during the Vietnam War and all of that, they specifically set out to target these psychedelics because they felt they undermined what America was trying to be. And what was America trying to be at that time? A place where it fights wars, it bombs other countries, it gets their resources, and it makes people clamor for those resources in their lives. And they found when people started using these psychedelics, they didn't care about being a manager. They didn't care about getting more money than the person around them. They didn't care as much. They cared about other people. They wanted other people to eat.
Yeah.
And this, they felt, undermined what the American dream was built on.
And I get the US government in that. Because I'm someone...
Yes.
I'm someone that loves order. Like, I'm an order over freedom type of person.
Yes, but what I'm saying is you're conflating...
free people opening their consciousness...
No, but what I'm saying is...
Close it.
Ironically, that's where I think, like, the indoctrination has worked. They've tricked people into believing that there is only one way to have order.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They've tricked people into believing that the only way we can live in a civilized society is if everybody goes to an office and everybody tries to make as much money as possible and everybody screws each other over. That's order. But when it's ancient tribes, whether it was Native Americans, whether it was, in South America, whether it was in Africa, they had order.
Yeah.
And this was a tool that they used, ironically, to maintain that order.
Because they did maintain that order. That's right.
Because when people are stuck, that's when there's disorder.
For sure.
This is when people now, they break, they fight, they hurt each other. That's the thing that actually brings the order back, because you go like, oh yeah, I'm part of something. I'm not alone in this thing.
Yeah.
We're all part of something.
Yeah, I think that's my problem. I'm not comfortable with a society where there's no yearning and like profound brokenness for people to keep striving.
Yeah, but striving for what? No, but striving for what?
Striving for just like this being their best, which is
actually.
I want to be the best artist.
I'm going to ask. So I'm going to ask Michael about this. But okay,
you know what I'm talking about,
yes,
right?
And
okay,
I would love to know, Michael, from your side, because look at you. You are one of the most accomplished writers. Did you find that you didn't have a yearning after taking psychedelics, or how did it affect your perception of what to yearn for?
Well, one of the things about psychedelics is you don't immediately want to do them again. It's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's why they're not habit forming, I think. It's like,
that's why the cartel doesn't sell mushrooms.
Yeah, there's no money in it. Even when these things are used in a treatment modality, it's 1 or 2 pills or experiences. That's it, And the pharmaceutical model is based on taking the same pill every day for the rest of your life. But without question, they're very disruptive. So every society has drugs, right? I mean, it's just a given that humans change consciousness. It's one of the things we do. Children do it when they get dizzy. We're just not satisfied with everyday normal consciousness for whatever reason. We have caffeine. We don't even think about that as a drug, but it's a very powerful drug. It happens to be a drug that makes us fit even more smoothly into the machinery of the capitalist order. It makes us very good workers, and that's why they're coffee breaks, right? I mean, think about it. Your employer gives you free drugs and time to use them in twice a day.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, and then there's alcohol, which kind of numbs people to a miserable life, although they can get into trouble with it. And there's cigarettes that actually help make people better workers in various ways. And then there are drugs that disrupt the whole system. And psychedelics in the Western context in the 60s were definitely that. There's a famous quote from President Nixon that his domestic policy advisor, John Ehrlichman, gave to a journalist. But basically, Ehrlichman said, yeah, the drug war, which Nixon starts in 1970, that wasn't about public health. That was all about politics. Nixon's great enemies were hippies and Black people.
Yeah.
And by making LSD illegal, he could disrupt the hippie community. And by making marijuana illegal, he could disrupt the Black community. So we have to understand that which drugs are legal, which ones are not, is always changing. And it depends on the nature of the drug, but also the nature of the society. What's happening with psychedelics now is it's undergoing a transformation itself from being this very disruptive force to potentially being something that could help people deal with various mental health issues. That's the story that hasn't been completely written yet, whether our society can make peace with these incredibly powerful and disruptive molecules. And the answer, the jury is still out.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I'm biased, but I'm biased because of the writing, the people I've met, the research. I don't think it does, to what Michael just said, it may interrupt people's yearning to be part of a system that has failed so many.
Yeah,
yes,
I agree.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But look at what it's done to the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're bombing other countries because we want the black goo that's underneath them, and then we'll bomb another country because we want that thing, or we feel like we need that. And all of that yearning, I don't mind if some of that goes down. I think, because I think people will have a different kind of yearning. And I think that'll broaden us out again as people.
Yeah,
do you get what I'm saying?
I completely feel you. I know that a lot of my objection is, on one hand, indoctrination.
Yes.
And then it's just like being a mother is fear.
Of course. That I understand.
Stakes in society, it's just like, it's this loosening or this loss of yearning or happening that terrifies. I couldn't even live through 2020. That was like, and we just had to be in our rooms, and Black people were like, we want a few more rights. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, it was just like, it was any sort of upheaval. I guess it's the British in me. We never really had a revolution. And it's just like,
no, that's true.
It's just like, come from societies that are all about order and hierarchy, and there's a king, there's a queen, and if you're Nigerian, you have a chief. Do you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of fear on the other side of it, and the ego, even if not something that I should, because I think that even though I'm like, this isn't for me, there could be someone else in my life that's like, I could say, you know what, you should try microdosing. This could help you.
Well, exactly. Or, I mean, even if I never wanted to use these substances again, I think I'd want to live in a world where other people were.
I like that.
Some other people.
Yeah.
Because, what we're doing is, I mean, we haven't talked about creativity, and some people get great ideas on psychedelics. They're cultural mutagens, right? They're like,
I mean, the
mutations.
Beatles. We don't have the Beatles without psychedelics.
Ringo Starr was the worst drummer. to probably ever live.
Hot take.
So I think I'm there. I think we're doing okay.
Whoa. Wow, hot take.
Terrible at keeping
Shots
time.
fired.
But anyway.
Sorry, yes, Michael.
or Steve Jobs, right?
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean, who credited his creative vision to LSD. I mean, I think that you want to have a lot of different kinds of people in your world, in your culture, and some of them are exploring frontiers of knowledge or frontiers of the self and interiority, and some are not. And it's not for everybody. But I think that it's on balance a good thing they exist, and the fact that people can achieve these states of consciousness, which may benefit all of us.
I love that. Michael, thank you. Thank you for joining us. You know me, I could talk to you for hours and hours about this, because I do believe, not that this is the solve for everything, but rather that there are many people who are stuck in their lives. And when you can start to unlock that in people, you just change, how people, when you change how you see the world, you change how you be in that world.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And the fact that you have a way of seeing the world we're not even aware of. We're not aware of this windshield of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And
like that.
what psychedelics do is they kind of smudge the windshield and you realize, oh shit, there's a windshield there.
Yeah. In fact,
why is it that way?
I would say,
and could it be another way?
I would argue world leaders should be doing psychedelics. Like, you see the UN, one day at the UN, everybody should have to take psychedelics, and they should all get guided. And then you can only start negotiating about how the world should be when you are fully able to see the world through multiple lenses. That's what I believe. So, Michael, I'm going to pitch that. And I
like that.
You're going to come
UN
in
General Assembly.
Let's do it. We're going to do it like the communion. We're just going to spike all the water that's in front of them. And then we start guiding them from the front. Michael Pollan, thank you so much. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Christiana, for adding some hybrid vigor to the conversation.
I love it. I love it. I call it hating, but you call it hybrid vigor. That's going to be the new term we use. Hybrid vigor. She's a hybrid vigorist.
I love it. I'm going to put that in my Instagram bio.
I love that. Thank you so much, Michael.
All right. You guys take care.
Okay.
You too.
So, okay. So let me ask you this. So first of all, if we were at 100% no.
For me personally, or for society?
No, for you personally.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. We can do both. You at 100% no for both.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go with society. Where are you now?
For society, I'm at like 50% no, because I think
that's a good jump.
I think most people should not be anywhere near this shit.
This is fine. I'm willing to take 50%.
But like when you're telling like end of life care, veterans, people need relief. People need healing, and however you find a healing in a way that's not harmful, I don't want to be in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
But for everyone else, you need to figure it out. I beg, figure it out. Grow up. Everyone's traumatized.
And for you personally?
For me personally, got me down to maybe 100% no to like 95% no. Because I don't want to augment my reality.
So there's nothing in your life where you go like, I'm stuck and I haven't been able to unstuck
my whole family situation is crazy. Yeah, but I can't fix them.
No, but
I can't fix my extended family, but like...
No, but I'm saying, what about you in them?
I agree there are like blocks and stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
But I feel like someone that I encountered the divine, and I have like a sense of wonder, nature, my children.
Yeah.
I don't have that yearning for it right now.
And
because
that's why I wouldn't say you should
do it. I have things that do that for me. But like, I see the benefits. But Michael's great. You're great. You have changed my mind on...
I'll take it. 5%. I have moved somebody who is extremely vigorous. I'll take my 5%.
Hybrid vigor. Hybrid vigor.
Hybrid vigor.